Hi everyone, this is Lauren with Stories and Surprises. I'm doing an unboxing from an order that I placed with Daedalus books. They sell overstock books that are very good and they're at a really affordable price. So I got a mix of fiction and nonfiction here. The first one is Ghost Soldiers by Hampton Sides. On January 28, 1945, 121 hand-selected U.S. troops slipped behind enemy lines in the Philippines. Their mission: marched 30 rugged miles to rescue 513 POWs languishing in a hellish camp, among them the last survivors of the infamous Bataan Death March. I won't read the whole thing, but that gives you a good gist. Nonfiction there. This is another nonfiction, The Watchmakers. I read the first chapter of this before I bought it, and it sounded really good. Harry Langa was born to a family of Hasidic Jews in Koźnix, Poland. The proud sons of a watchmaker, Harry and his two brothers, Melech and Moishe, studied their father's trade at a young age. Upon the German invasion of Poland, when the Langa family was upended, Harry and his brothers never anticipated that the tools acquired from their father would be the key to their survival. That's just a part of the description. Can't wait to read that one. A third nonfiction, A Bright and Blinding Sun by Marcus Brotherton. Joe Johnson Jr. ran away from home at the age of 12, hopped a freight train at the height of the Great Depression, and managed to talk his way into the U.S. Army 2 years later. Seeking freedom and adventure, he was sent to the Philippines. Feeling adrift and looking for companionship, Joe visited a teenage prostitute, and they became unlikely smitten allies. When the Japanese attacked the United States on December 7, 1941, their hopes of being together were put on hold. Joe and his fellow soldiers fought for 4 brutal months in Bataan and Corregidor until they were forced to surrender. The boy endured years of horror as a prisoner of war, only dreaming about seeing again the girl he'd come to love. That one. And this one is fiction. It's called Beggar's Alley. Winter 1954. In a dilapidated apartment in Brooklyn, Sam Cooper realizes that she has nothing left. Her mother is dead, she has no prospects, and she cannot afford the rent. But as she goes through her mother's things, Sam finds a stack of hidden letters that reveal a family and an inheritance she never knew she had, 3,000 miles away in Yorkshire. Beggar's Abbey is a crumbling pile inhabited only by Sam's ailing grandmother, Lady Cooper, and a handful of servants. I'll just leave it at that. It's a good lead-in. Can't wait to read that. This is also another intriguing, I would say maybe gothic mystery. Kat lives in Los Angeles, far from 36 Westerick Road, the imposing gothic house in Edinburgh, where she and her estranged twin sister Elle grew up. As girls, they invented Mirrorland, a dark, imaginary place under the pantry stairs, full of pirates, witches, and clowns. These days, Kat rarely thinks about their childhood home or the fact that Elle now lives there. Sorry, my nose itches. Or the fact that Elle now lives there with her husband, Ross. But when Elle mysteriously disappears after going out on her sailboat, Kat is forced to return to 36 Westerick Road, which hasn't changed in 20 years. The grand old house is still full of shadowy corners, and at every turn, Kat finds herself stumbling on long-held secrets and terrifying ghosts from the past. That's Mirrorland. This is a different genre for me, but it sounded so funny. Mrs. Planksky's Revenge. I don't believe in revenge and taking revenge in your own hands, but this plot is just too funny, and we can excuse the revenge aspect of it. Mrs. Loretta Planksky, a recent widow in her 70s, is settling into retirement in Florida while dealing with her 98-year-old father and fielding requests for money from her beloved children and grandchildren. Thankfully, her new hip hasn't changed her killer tennis game one bit. One night, Mrs. Planksky is startled awake by a phone call from a voice claiming to be her grandson Will, who desperately needs $10,000 to get out of a jam. Of course, Loretta obliges. After all, what are grandmothers for? By morning, Mrs. Planksky has lost everything, and law enforcement says it's hopeless to find the scammers behind the heist. First humiliated, then furious, Loretta Planksky refuses to be just another victim. That sounds super funny. So I guess a part thriller, but part humorous fiction. And a couple more here. 2 more. Two more nonfiction. This one looked really fascinating to me. A Village in the Third Reich. Hidden deep in the Bavarian mountains lies the picturesque village of Oberstdorf, a place where for hundreds of years people lived simple lives while history was made elsewhere. Yet even this remote idyll could not escape the brutal iron grip of the Nazi regime. From the author of the international bestseller Travelers in the Third Reich comes A Village in the Third Reich, shining a light on the lives of ordinary people. Drawing on personal archives, letters, interviews, memoirs, it lays bare their brutality and love, courage and weakness, action, apathy and grief, hope, pain, joy, and despair. Within its pages, we encounter people from all walks of life: foresters, priests, farmers and nuns, innkeepers, Nazi officials, veterans, and party members, village councilors, mountaineers, socialists, slave laborers, school children, tourists, and aristocrats. We meet the Jews who survived and those who didn't, the Nazi mayor who tried to shield those persecuted by the regime, and a blind boy whose life was judged not worth living. This is a tale of conflicting loyalties and desires, of shattered dreams, but one in which ultimately human resilience triumphs. These are the stories of ordinary lives at the crossroads of history. That's the one I'm looking forward to the most of this. And one more. This is also history, but from a different time period. Realm Divided, A Year in the Life of Plantagenet, England. That's the dynasty that came before the Tudors, by Dan Jones. 1215 is remembered for King John attaching his seal to Magna Carta, a milestone in the history of liberty. But it was also a year of crusading and church reform, of foreign wars and dramatic sieges, a year in which London was stormed by angry barons and England invaded by a French army. As well as describing these upheavals, Dan Jones explores the lives of ordinary people in 13th century England, how they ate, dressed, worked, lived, and died, to create a vivid and gripping portrait of an extraordinary year in English history. I love books that touch on how ordinary people live, not just the military battles and the kings and the queens, but more the details of ordinary daily life. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me know in the comments which one of these you would most want to read. If you've read one of these, let me know. Also, if you like videos like this, please subscribe and like. I'll do more of them. Thanks, everybody.